Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? We're back again with yet another video, and today we are going to be talking about my honest experience going through chemotherapy for 5 months. And this is going to be like all the side effects, how I was feeling mentally during different periods of time. So there was 3 different drugs that I was on for the chemotherapy, some given much more frequently than others. I'm going to get into all that and more in just a second. But yeah, I couldn't be happier to finally be done with the long road of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is the most dreaded treatment for any disease on the planet because it's so long. You have to go through hell every single time you do it. Or do you? Let's jump in. Let's see. Maybe it wasn't that bad for me. So yeah, if you guys watch my videos up until this point, you know that I was diagnosed with embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma in the orbit of my left eye in July of 2024. After noticing some problems with my eye as far as the way it looked and my vision in June. Pretty quick diagnosis, but it felt like a while because we were in such a panic, and the rate at which my tumor was growing was something that I don't think anyone that I ran into had seen before, because I didn't go to a cancer-specific hospital. But I've already told that story 1,000 times. I'm not going to focus on the diagnosis process right here. I'm going to jump right into treatment. So, treatment for embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma consists of 2 cycles of chemotherapy, each one ranging 10 weeks long. And this is pretty consistent no matter where you go for treatment. This is kind of how it is. There can be small tweaks, but overall it's the same treatment. So the first cycle consists of getting 3 drugs every 3rd week, and then 1 drug the consecutive 2 weeks after the 3-drug week. And then the second cycle consists of getting 2 drugs every 3rd week with an intermittent period of radiation smack in the middle of the second cycle. I guess more towards the beginning, if I had to say. And during the radiation period, you're only getting the 1 drug of chemo throughout that entire time, because that second drug cannot be mixed with radiation, something about toxicity levels. There's a whole science to it. And I'm pretty excited because I've never ever in my life seen any YouTube video going through each chemical of chemotherapy and doing an in-depth analysis of how it makes you feel. Obviously, it will be different person to person depending on what kind of cancer you're diagnosed with, what the treatment looks like. Thankfully, this chemotherapy only really had 4 big chemos and 2 medium ones. The rest were pretty easy. But we'll get into all that in a second. I will also talk about the symptoms of radiation, but I doubt that anyone watching this video will have had the exact same thing that I had. So it really varies on the location of the tumor. Like, if you have it in your leg, then you'll have leg symptoms. I had it behind my eye, so I had eye-related radiation symptoms. Radiation symptoms stay local to the site at which you're radiating. Chemotherapy symptoms range through your entire body. So chemo is definitely worse in the short run by a million miles, and radiation is probably worse in the long run because there's really only one long-term concern for the chemo, which we'll get into in a second. And it only relates to those 4 big doses of chemo. So let's start. How do I want to do this? So there was 3 drugs. I'm gonna name the first drug. I'm gonna go from least intense to most intense. So the drug that I got the most was the least intense one. It was called Vincristine. Kind of an unsuspecting name with a name like that. I could see that easily being the name of a person or something, not toxic chemotherapy. So it's kind of funny that it's named that. But the Vincristine, so I had 19 days of chemotherapy because 2 10-week cycles, and then the last cycle I combined 2 days just to get it over with. But I had 19 days of chemotherapy. Out of the 19 days, I had 18 doses of Vincristine. So Vincristine can only be given 9 weeks in a row. The cycle is 10 weeks long. So on that 10 week of the first cycle, I didn't get the Vincristine. And then it was supposed to be the same for the second cycle, but because I had a gap in my chemo for 1 week because of something else that I'll talk about in just a second, I was able to combine the other drug with the Vincristine, and it was pretty much the same as it's always been. So the Vincristine, what are the side effects of Vincristine? For me, there's 2 main ones. There's also a third one, which I didn't personally experience that much. The first one is tiredness. I definitely felt that the day I get it, and 2 days after, I would say, I was pretty tired. Just like feeling like you don't really want to do anything, not really anything specific, just very, very tired. And it's a different type of tired than the tiredness you get from not sleeping enough, which you can kind of just shrug it off. You can be like, okay, whatever, or take a nap. With this, it's like you're literally like tired and you have to wait it out. Like there's no amount of sleep that you can get that'll make you not tired that day or the following day. So that was one. And that, I would say, is the biggest symptom of chemo in general, is tiredness. By far the biggest. The second one that I didn't really have, is constipation. This can occur from Vincristine. I did have constipation because of something else, but we'll get into that in just a minute. And then the third one, which is definitely the most severe and possibly the most worrying of any chemo side effect, besides one other one, because of the fact that this could take months to resolve even after completing treatment, is neuropathy. Now, what is neuropathy? It's not really a symptom that I've ever heard anyone talk about from anything else besides chemo. So I've heard of it before because I've known people that have had a slipped herniated disc in their back and had tingling and numbness in their toes on whatever leg is closest to the affected herniation, but I've never heard of it in the hands and the feet simultaneously, in the right hand, left hand, right foot, left foot, all the same amount, which I'm not saying is what happened, but I'm not saying it was exactly even across the board. It was definitely worse in my hands personally, but my doctor going in was very worried about this particular side effect because I do have cerebral palsy. So if I lose feeling in my feet in particular, I'll have trouble walking, right? Because I won't be able to feel the ground under me. So he was worried, I was worried. This was one of the biggest concerns, if not the biggest concern in my particular case. But thankfully he gave me this supplement called glutamine, L-glutamine, great supplement. It's got like no downside, and it's really a supplement you can take just if you want to promote healthy nerve endings and nerve cells. But that pretty much prevented a lot of the neuropathy from occurring. I did have it a little bit specifically after I forgot to take the glutamine for a week. It came on pretty strong, but once I got back on the glutamine, it simmered down a good amount. So yeah, that is a major symptom. I don't have it anymore. It's already gone. I've been off treatment since December 12th, and yeah, it's now January 4th, and I don't have it. So it resolved pretty quickly for me, thank God, because that would be one of the ones that would not be good in my particular case, as I said. So that is the Vincristine. The next one, oh, I think I mentioned already, yes. I got it 18 times. So yeah, Vincristine, those are the three things it causes. But it actually doesn't make you feel like crap. So, ironically enough, the main thing with chemo that everyone associates it with is feeling like crap. For, I would say, 90% of the time, every time I got solely the Vincristine, which was, so if I had 19 chemos, 19 minus 6 is 13. So there were 13 chemos, right? 3 plus, yeah. 13 chemos where I didn't feel like shit at all. I just felt a bit tired. So that's definitely one of the greatest blessings, because feeling like shit obviously is not the move. Now, the next drug that was given to me was called Dactinomycin. Now, out of the 3 drugs that I got, the Dactinomycin is the rarest one to get because it targets specifically sarcomas. So if you don't have a sarcoma, you probably won't be getting the Dactinomycin. And I got that a total of 6 times. It's either 6 or 7 depending on how long radiation ends up being. What I mean by that is this. Throughout the second cycle, I had 5.5 weeks of radiation. That was one of the variables. That was one of the only variables throughout treatment based on the second MRI and PET scan. If the tumor was still there, they would do 28 days of radiation. If I had a complete response to the first round of chemotherapy, then I would have 20. And if I had 20, I would have gotten the Dactinomycin 3 times instead of 2. Which sounds counterintuitive, but I would say an extra 8 days of radiation is definitely worse than one more Dactinomycin, even though Dactinomycin does make you feel like absolute dung crap. The thing about Dactinomycin is that it actually doesn't have any long-term risks. I mean, I'm sure it can, but there's no specific side effect from Dactinomycin that doesn't simply just resolve very quickly. So, the side effects from Dactinomycin are nausea, tiredness, that's pretty much it. Just tiredness and nausea. That's a very simple kind of side effect. That's basically what you would expect out of chemo, right? A lot of people report nausea from chemotherapy, and to combat this, they actually give you anti-nausea meds and steroids at the time of you getting Dactinomycin. So the face can look puffy. That is something that happened to me a little bit, but nothing crazy. It resolves in 2 days. And yeah, Dactinomycin definitely is not fun in the short term. It's not great at all. It's pretty awful. But it resolves thankfully in about 3 to 4 days. So for 3 to 4 days, you're basically just laying around in bed. It also affects your appetite because all that anti-nausea stuff kind of messes with your stomach. And instead of being nauseous, I just had like a pretty bad stomach ache the entire time. I wasn't as hungry as I usually am. I'm usually pretty hungry, so that was definitely a weird one for me. And then also too, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the anti-nausea meds did cause me some pretty serious constipation as well. So I took pills for that. I took like laxatives to help me get out whatever was stored in my system and was stuck. So I got Dactinomycin 6 times, and the last 2 times I got it were not in conjunction with the third chemotherapy drug, which we're about to jump into, which was by far the worst one, both short-term and long-term. It's the most toxic one, and it is much, much scarier than the others. So, the last 2 times on Dactinomycin, I actually got a cold both times, which is kind of odd. But overall, not as bad as the C drug, which is cyclophosphamide. This is a very common chemotherapy drug. It's used to treat a bunch of different types of chemo, and it is extremely toxic. So, The side effects of cyclophosphamide are nausea, tiredness. You have to hydrate yourself from, I believe, 24 hours after you get your cyclophosphamide. That is because it attacks your entire system, so you need to keep peeing everything out constantly in order to be able to get that stuff out of your system. Um, I guess that's not a direct side effect of cyclophosphamide, but it is definitely just something that goes along with it. So those three, it causes hair loss. This is the one that causes your entire head of hair to fall out, as well as your beard, all your hair on your body goes bye-bye after you do cyclophosphamide. You're not as much leg and arm hair, I would say, but everything here, chest, belly, eyebrows, beard, hair, all will be gone, which is obviously severe. That's drugs like cyclophosphamide are what give that cancer look, right? That bald yellow look. The reason why you're yellow after you get cyclophosphamide is because your liver is going through a lot trying to process that insane toxicity that cyclophosphamide can have on your body. And so hair loss, and then this one is more long term. The one side effect of chemo that is can be long term is the scariest one, and it is infertility. So the cyclophosphamide kills off the cells in your testicles, so that could cause major complications in the future. And as a result, most good doctors will give you fertility, like I forget what it's called I guess when you freeze your sperm. So yeah, that's something that you have to do if you're going on cyclophosphamide. If you are about to endure chemotherapy and you are going on to a drug that affects fertility, definitely ask your doctor if you should freeze your sperm. Obviously, it depends what stage of life you're at, but if you want to have kids in the future, I would recommend doing it to be safe. Cyclophosphamide combined with doxorubicin are probably the two most powerful and potent chemotherapy drugs that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, cyclophosphamide is pretty bad. So yeah, it causes all that stuff. You actually have to leave the hospital with a hydration pack on your back. You'll feel extremely weak. I had to deal with this 4 times, but the first time was not nearly as bad as the other 3 times. It also can cause you to go into a white blood cell deficit. It drops your blood count. It basically turns your blood into complete crap for that time being. And it makes your body weak. It makes you not hungry, just like Dactinomycin. For me, it even affected my movement, because movement is one of my main problems because of cerebral palsy. But that won't be for everyone. That was just in my case specifically. Yeah. So yeah, that was the worst one by far. Enough about that. Those were the 3 chemotherapy drugs I got, and those were the main side effects of them. Moving on to the radiation. Now, I forgot to mention, cyclophosphamide symptoms wear off in about 4 days. I would say 4 days, maybe even 5, depending on what type of person you are. But the next day, you have to come back in and get a shot of Neulasta because it affects your immune system to that level. So, yes. Now, as far as the radiation goes, what are the symptoms of radiation, short term and long term? Let's get into it. So, radiation, like I said, causes localized symptoms. So, for me, it was the left eye. So, the 3 major symptoms in the short term are eye irritation, skin irritation, as well as hair loss. Those are the three main ones. None of them sound that bad, but the problem is that they persist. So even right now, over a month after radiation, my eyebrow is still missing. So after cyclophosphamide, which made my hair, beard, and eyebrows fall out, I had to wait 3.5 weeks for it to come back, start growing back. With radiation, it's been way more than that, and it's still nowhere to be found. There is a strong possibility that it may never come back because of how the hair cells were killed. They were killed because they were literally singed off my face. So it's different than when you lose your entire head of hair to chemo, because that has to come back, because all that is your head is letting go of your hair. That pretty much always comes back. But if you were to get radiation to the top of your head, your face, or your eyes, you'll likely lose that hair forever. So I'm going to be missing an eyebrow forever. It's no big deal. It might grow back. There is a possibility, but I don't see any hair there. So I'm not holding my breath for it. Also, my oncologist said it possibly might not. Now, moving on, eye irritation is also something that I might have to deal with for a pretty long time. He said it does resolve, but it's been pretty potent ever since I ended radiation. And it actually got worse after the end of radiation. So my eye is likely to get red, even if I just touch it for a second, it will get red. If you look through my last few videos, you'll probably see some evidence of that. And then the skin irritation, that's short term, that goes away pretty quickly. Now, long-term effects of radiation on the orbit, you are at a severely increased risk of developing a cataract in your eye. That is one thing that you will probably have to deal with, but that's surgically removable. And if it's not bad enough to surgically remove it, then just gotta deal with that. But yeah, that's pretty much the only long-term effect of radiation that doesn't present itself quickly, but unfortunately your body never forgets about radiation. It's just kind of the way it works. I don't know exactly why that is, but there's really no healing from it. And depending on the body part you do it to, it might not matter at all. Not at all, but the orbit of the eye is obviously not a good spot for radiation. Like, if it were like the back of your neck, it wouldn't be as bad, because, there's not as much back there. But yeah, with all that being said, that is my honest experience going through chemotherapy and radiation at 21. If you've undergone chemo and radiation in the past, let me know what you think down below. My treatment did not involve much surgery at all, besides getting that port in and the biopsy, which were both minor surgeries. I still have to get the port out. So that will be the third surgery that I get throughout this entire process. But if you had surgery as a big part of your regimen, let me know down below as well. So yeah, with all that being said, hope you got something out of this. This is more of an informative video. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend going through chemo, but if you have to, that was my experience. Everyone's is different. So thanks for watching. If you stuck to the end, you're an absolute legend, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.